good evening. Welcome to the Lights Off podcast. I'm Liz.
I'm Trevor.
I'm Harley.
And I'm Logan.
And we just watched I'm Just Fucking With You on Hulu by Adam Mason. It's pretty diabolical.
Yeah, it was pretty fucking funny.
I thought it was hilarious.
I'm just fucking with you. It sucked.
Was
Just kidding.
it
No, it was
hilarious or was it horrible? Or both?
It was everything.
Yes.
All in one.
It was cringy and it was like bad, but it was good and it was funny and it made you feel a little sad for the character. But it's like also a lot of shit.
The way I described it is like the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas
As a horror movie. Yeah.
It was great, I thought.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah. We're all kind of on the same page there.
The movie starts out with Larry driving down like what looked like a coast or like a mountain range.
Yeah, Larry's the main character.
Yeah. And then he logs into his Twitter account. That's what was it?
Programming flaw.
Yeah,
Programming flaw.
That's his Twitter handle.
Then he calls Rachel, who is his sister, or Rachel calls him and asks if he's still coming to dinner, but he's like, I don't want to. But then she says that she's just going to come out and see him at the Pink Motel. Larry walks into the hotel and rings the bell, but no one's there. So he gets impatient after like 2 seconds and decides to walk to the bar.
Yeah, the bar right next to it.
Yeah. I think it's in the same building.
Yeah. Sees two people in there. Which is Chester and Gary.
Gerald, but yeah.
Jerry.
Gary. Forgot how you say his name.
No, it was Gerald, and then he's like,
It's Jerry.
It's Jerry. It's, yeah. Gary, Jerry, fucking Gerald. Yeah.
Gerald.
Gerald. Yeah, I guess Gerald.
And they're just laughing it up in there.
Yep.
Having a good old time.
Joking.
And then
They yeah, Larry walks in there and they both just like stare at him.
you got a problem?
Super serious, yeah.
He's like, no, I'm just trying to get a room. And then Chester's like, XYZ, that's your problem. I'm just fucking with you.
He wasn't actually zipped down, so he's just uncomfortable about the whole situation.
Larry is like super not into it at all.
And Chester's also like sitting on like the bar where the alcohol is with like his feet up on the fucking like bar where people like eat their food.
Yeah, and Chester is like the supposed owner guy, or he's watching.
No,
over
he's not
things.
the owner.
He says he's
the-
one of the workers there,
Yeah.
and he's working overtime.
Because I know Larry asks if he's the owner, but he's like, no, not me.
And he's like $75, and so Larry hands him cash.
Yeah.
And then I know they were talking, just bullshitting, and then
Oh yeah, I forgot too. Like as he's walking over there, after he says like "I'm just fucking with you," he opens up a beer, like tries to slide it towards him, and it just falls off the end of the bar, like nowhere close near him. He's like, "I'm just fucking with you," just like nonstop joking around with him.
then cracks another one open, but just leaves it in place for him.
Yeah.
And then Gary ends up leaving, but he like slaps Larry on the ass as he's walking by him.
Well, yeah, no, he walks up, and he's like trying to get a room, and he just like wants to go to his room. He tells Chester he's like tired.
Yeah.
And then fucking Gary just like interrupts him, and he's like, it's mean not to accept another man's drink or something like that.
Yeah, you don't leave a drink that another person poured for you.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
So he pretends to take a sip of it, and these guys are just joking around, and he like just doesn't want anything to do with it.
Hmm.
Then Gary leaves and slaps Larry on the ass, and then then Chester talks to Larry, just figuring out like, hey, what's he in town for? And ends up telling him that he's there for a marriage.
Yeah, his ex-wife's wedding. You don't find out later that it's his ex-wife, but
Was it his ex-wife or is it an ex-girlfriend?
ex-girlfriend, ex-wife. I forgot.
Ex-girlfriend, he was gonna propose.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay, yeah.
And so he's stalking her under a different name, like just trolling her pretty much because he's jealous.
So that's why he has the alternate
Programming
account,
flaw.
basically, so he can just like post shit about her online that's like not true,
Yeah.
like talking shit. Larry's not a great person.
It's also not just her either. It's just like everyone who
Yeah.
Larry.
It's a troll account is what
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Larry's just a troll.
Yeah.
And then
He's kind of a little bitch. So,
And then Larry talks about how he bought them a set of cookie sheets because it was the last thing on the registry, and then makes a joke saying that the cookie sheets are going to last longer than the marriage.
Yeah, no, Chester's trying to dig into him because you can tell he's just, like, upset about something. So he tries to dig into him to see what he's upset about, and finally Larry just talks about the whole wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then Chester starts talking about how, like, he needs a credit card and a photo ID for the room. But then Larry is like, I already gave you the $75, man.
Yeah.
Just check your pockets. And he's like, oh, there's nothing in my pockets. I need a credit card and a photo ID. Getting all, like, really serious about it. Kind of like
he's just like, are you serious, man? I just gave you money.
Yeah.
And then Chester's just, like, fucking with him even more. He's just like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I can't run this business without any money. Even, like, opens up his pockets and there's nothing in there because Larry tells him to check his pockets because he's like, I just gave you $75.
And then Larry threatens to call the police on him, and that's when he's like, I'm just fucking with you. And he, like, puts the key out in his hand.
Well, he's like, before you do that, you might want your room keys, and then throws them to him. And he's like, I'm just fucking with you.
And Larry's like, fuck this guy. I want to go to my room.
Yeah.
So he goes to his room and then
it's like an introduction to, like, what Chester is like. He, like, never takes anything seriously.
No.
It's also kind of like a big introduction to how Larry is, too, because the second he gets back to his room, he's like a little bitch. He starts writing up a review, 1 star. On the
so he's a germaphobe, too.
Yeah, when he gets back to his like motel room, he starts like
cleaning everything,
shining a UV light on everything,
sanitizing everything.
Yeah, and then he writes the.
He's like a ball of anxiety and insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
fuck, dude, man's just walking anxiety.
Yeah. Gives me anxiety looking at him. Yeah.
He then writes a like bad review on the Pink Motel, calling it a flea-ridden shithole.
Yeah, immediately gets on Rand and starts, like, writing a review on something.
Yeah.
He's like one of those people that feels powerful because they write reviews on shit.
And he's a Karen.
Yeah. Mel Karen.
And then he goes on Cindy's page.
On her Facebook.
Yeah. Looks at pictures of her.
Oh, no. It was FOCEB00K.
That's what I was wondering.
Oh,
because they couldn't take Facebook.
Oh, yeah, they used the fake whip. Yeah, social media. Facebook. Yeah, not Facebook.
Okay.
Then he then goes on to Facebook and then goes on to Cindy's, like, Facebook page. He's just, like, scrolling through pictures and then finds one and then...
Yeah, being a creep.
Starts to jerk off to it.
Yeah.
And there's a camera right above him watching it, but he doesn't know it.
Yeah. Wait, is it above him or it's like in the wall that's in front of him, right?
I think it's above him because it's like a head down perspective of his like top side.
So it's like the heater vent above him.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
So I'm guessing it's supposed to be like Chester's watching him jerk off now or something.
Yeah.
You might think. Probably. And then he goes in the bathroom and sees that Chester sent him a friend request. And he's like, what the fuck? And just ignores it.
I think that one's after the car crash.
Yeah, so he goes to bed after he like jerks off.
Well,
No, that's the same night because he gets up and goes into the bathroom doing something. And then I think before that he's like watching the TV and there's a car crash.
Yeah, and then he gets worried.
Or that's after the bathroom, actually.
Yeah. So he gets worried because his sister's supposed to be on the way to the same hotel as him.
And the news just said that there was a car accident and a woman died. So he's like, what?
Yeah, and then Rachel's not answering her phone, so it's like, oh. Then, there was a car wreck that was playing on TV and it said that a woman died. So then he tries to, like, call and, like, mass text his sister, just checking up, making sure she's okay.
Doesn't get a response.
He starts to show, like, that he's also kind of a worrywart.
Yeah, so then he calls Chester and is like, have you heard from my sister? And he's like, let me check, man. Let me check my messages and see if anyone called. And then he doesn't.
Yeah.
It just shows him sitting there smoking. And he says, oh, man. There's bad news, man.
Yeah, he starts telling fucking Larry, he's just like, sorry to tell you this, Larry, but...
Your sister's not going to make it, man.
Yeah.
Turns out there was a message. She found a big cock to suck and then she died.
And went to heaven.
Went to heaven.
And he's like, I'm just fucking with you. Why would I know anything about your sister, even if she did call? Like,
Yeah.
Which is a good
And
point.
then now Larry's like starting to get fed up
So that's
with it.
He's like,
yeah.
Because he's like
Too
actually
much.
worried about his sister, and fucking Chester's just joking about it.
Yeah. Then Larry goes to buy a soda from a soda machine,
Yeah.
and he presses the button after he puts the coins in, and it's not coming out. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jerry just pops up and
Gerald.
smacks the machine in. The soda
Like
falls.
right behind Larry, he just like fucking punches the machine, like right behind him.
He pins him against
Yeah,
it.
pins him against him, punches the machine, and the soda falls out.
And he
It's
grabs
all
it
like-
from in between his legs.
Yeah.
gets all real sexual with him. Like, you see this jacket? It's a sign of like my armor. And if you're touching my armor, that means you want to fuck or you want to fight. Are you trying to fight? And then he like smells him.
Larry just was shitting.
And he's like, oh no.
No, I'm not trying to fight.
Gary's
"Oh."
like this big fucking 6'5" biker dude. He's just kind of a creep as well.
They're all kind of creeps, man.
Yeah.
The only normal person is Rachel.
And then
Yeah.
We don't even know her yet.
Yeah. All you know about her is that
She's Larry's sister.
Yeah.
That's it.
and that she's coming to the Pink Motel.
I mean, you can kind of tell beforehand that Larry doesn't have a great relationship with his family, and Rachel's the only person in his family he connects with.
Yeah.
But yeah, haven't been introduced to her yet.
So then Larry goes back to his room after big ass dude lets him go.
Yeah, after almost getting molested by Gary.
Yeah.
Oh, Gary also because they just kind of stared at each other, and then Larry was like, "Not that either." And then he's like, "Well, if you ever want to get an ass pounding, come to room 7." And then he just howls.
lone wolves.
Man's a freak. So yeah, and then Larry goes back to his room, and that's when he finds that letter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he finds a letter that's from Chester, and he opens it up, and it's just a picture of Chester's dick.
Like full on.
Yeah, it's just his
Like a
flaccid dick.
Polaroid of his penis
Yeah.
hard.
Was it Chester though? Because it just said room 6 on it, but I think wasn't Larry in a different room?
It said Larry, room 6.
Oh, okay.
Larry was in room 6.
It was
And then
like
it had-
formally addressed to Larry. In
Then
that
it had
hallway.
something written on it. What was
It
written?
was love, your sister.
Oh yeah.
Ha ha. Good one. Chester.
It's kind of funny, man. It's kind of a funny dick pic.
Yeah. So then Larry goes and gets in the shower, and this whole time he's been texting his sister like, "Where the fuck are you?"
Yeah, still
Like-
worried, still not getting a response.
Yeah. Thinks that she might have been in an accident. Just wants to get the fuck out of there.
And then he hears knocking at what he thinks is his front door at the time.
While he's in the shower.
Yeah, while he's in the shower. And then he hops out and he's like, 1 minute, I'm coming. And then the knocking's at the bathroom door.
Yeah.
Then he's like, hello? What do you want? And then,
Yeah, there's somebody speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
So he immediately assumes it's the
like,
maid or
housekeeping.
cleaning or whatnot, which is kind of racist. I'm gonna say that's joked about being racist by Chester, but that is kind of racist to assume.
Yeah.
Just,
He's like, "Oh, okay, just come back tomorrow, please."
yeah.
And he can't open the door because it's locked.
Mm-hmm. So he's trying to open it. They're still knocking at the door.
Oh, and the person speaking Spanish was Chester.
Yeah.
Chester was just in
Yeah.
the room saying that he has some stuff that he needs to do in there.
Yeah. And then
He's just
Chester
fucking with
starts speaking English to him. So then Larry knows that it's Chester.
He's like,
Yeah.
"It's me, man. Not every. What are they called?"
Not
Yeah.
every housekeeper
Yeah.
speaks Spanish, man. That's racist.
Yeah.
And
Like I said, it is kind of racist.
It definitely is kind of racist.
Chester's like, "By the way, the door doesn't open. I forgot to tell you. This door gets stuck, so I'm gonna tell you what to do, okay?"
Yeah, and then Larry's automatically thinking that Chester's just fucking with him because that's what he's been doing this whole time. So he doesn't actually think the door's stuck. He just thinks Chester's fucking with him. And so he's
Yeah.
like, "Come on, man, don't do this with me. I know it's not actually stuck." And he's like, "I promise you, man. The owners of this place, they want me to tell everybody that's in this room that the door gets stuck."
So I'm gonna need you to put all your weight against it.
Yeah.
And then
So Larry does,
Yeah.
and then he fucking does, and then he automatically just falls to the floor because it's not actually stuck.
Yeah, Chester was just blocking it.
Yeah, so Chester was actually fucking with him.
Yeah. And then also before this, like, whole bathroom scene happened, Larry actually goes on Twitter and calls Cindy a cheater.
Yeah.
And just uses his trolling account to troll Cindy again.
Yeah, program flaw.
Yeah, program flaw. And then Larry, while he's on the floor after the whole, like, Chester blocking the door thing.
Yeah, he gets up and he's, like, really angry at Chester now. He's just like,
You're pathetic.
Yeah, starts laying into him. He's like, you're pathetic. You know why people like you do this? Because nobody likes you.
And he gets all mad and goes outside, and Chester's like, no, come back, man.
Yeah, no. After that, too, like, Chester's just like, Larry just keeps telling him, he's just like, it's not funny, Chester. And Chester's just like, oh, that wasn't funny? You think you're funny? He's like, why don't you tell me a joke?
And then I have the joke written down. He says,
lame.
What do you call a person with no body and no nose?
Nobody knows.
Super dad joke.
That's a good one, Larry.
Yeah, and then Chester starts laughing at it, and he's like, that's a good one, Larry.
And I'll see you tomorrow.
Good job, Larry.
It's a very strange scene. It's like establishing that fucking Chester's just a psychopath.
Yeah. And then they go outside, and Chester's like, because Larry's leaving, packing all his shit.
Yeah, trying to get out of there because he's fed up with Chester.
Yeah. And then Chester's like, I'm sorry, dude. I took it too far. You know, you give a moose a cookie and he asks for milk.
And I'm asking for milk, man.
I'm asking
sorry,
for milk, man. Yeah, and then Larry ends up calling the cops because Chester mentions something about Rachel, but never really said her name to him. So he was like, oh, how the fuck did you know my sister's name?
Well, yeah, he says, I swear to God I didn't hear from Rachel, man, because he's just trying to calm Larry down.
Yeah.
And then Larry realizes after he gets in his car, he's like, wait, I never told him my sister's name. And so he starts getting a little paranoid. He's like, well, how did he know her name? And now he's also thinking that, like, Chester's a psychopath.
Yeah. Which, I mean, is a fair thought. He is kind of fucking weird.
I mean, I gotta admit, if I was in this situation, I'd probably also just be laughing. But
yeah, it would be kind of funny.
Chester is a psychopath, so.
And then he calls the cops, and the cop shows up, and then Larry's like talking to him, being like, "Hey, he knows my sister's name, but I never said my name." So he like called the cops for like not really much of a reason.
Yeah. So as soon as the cop shows, he calls the cops because Chester knew Rachel's name, so he's getting really paranoid, and he's already like a fucking bag of anxiety and whatnot. So yeah, he calls the cops, and that's the sheriff that shows up. I forgot the sheriff's name.
I don't think they ever said it.
Yeah,
I think it was just sheriff.
Anyway, he shows up, and then as soon as he shows up, Larry goes out to talk to him, and Chester sees him, and Chester starts joking around with the sheriff. He's like, "Oh no, you're not gonna come get my kitty porn, are you?" And he's
So
like,
the
"Oh, I'm
sheriff
just fucking with
instantly
you." And the
doesn't
sheriff's
like
like, "Don't even joke about that."
It's like the worst fucking joke.
And then the cop wants to talk to Chester, so they're talking in like the kitchen area. And then Larry's like sneaking around trying to find something and finds like a bill that has Rachel's name on it.
Yeah, it was like a check-in sheet or whatever that was printed off.
So he's positive that Chester did something to her.
Yeah, so he's like, "Ah, you killed my sister."
Yeah, so the cop and Chester walk into the office and they see that Larry's snooping around, and the sheriff, he's just like, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing that. It's private property." And so then Larry's trying to explain to him. He's like, "See, he knew who my sister was.
Look, the name's on here."
Yeah. And while that's happening, fucking Chester, because the sheriff isn't looking at him, punches himself in the face.
Straight Eddie Guerrero style, dude.
Super hard. And so, like, the cop turns around, and Chester's just like, "Oh, Larry, why'd you do that?" And the sheriff automatically thinks that it was Larry that punched him in the face.
It's super perfect.
Yeah.
It's super convincing.
Chester's really good at lying to cops, man.
Yeah, he is. He's like Ricky from Trailer Park Boys.
I also do think it's funny because, like, Chester, every time he's been joking, has just, like, written it off as, like, "Oh, I'm just fucking with you." But he always just, like, makes everybody believe that Larry really did punch him in the face. Like, he never says that it was a joke.
he still does keep up that joke. Man. Like, oh man, you hit me in the face, but it's okay. And then
and Larry's acting crazy, obviously. So the sheriff doesn't believe him that he didn't actually punch him in the face. He believes Chester.
Yeah.
Because Chester's kind of like smooth talking him, but also joking around.
Then Rachel shows up right after Chester punches himself in the face. Yeah. He's like, he hit me.
Well, the sheriff tries arresting Larry after that happened because he thinks that he assaulted Chester, and so Chester's just like, you know what, officer, it's all right. I've been fucking with him all day. Yeah.
And he's like, it's my fault. I pushed him a little too far.
If anybody's guilty here, it's me.
Yeah.
He's like, you're not pressing charges?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's my fault, officer.
Yeah, and so then the sheriff leaves after that.
Yeah.
And as that's happening, Larry's standing in like the kitchen place with Chester still. And that's when Rachel shows up. Yeah, she walks in there and she's like, what the fuck is happening? And
he's like, your brother just hit me in the face.
Yeah, Larry sees her and he's like, wait, you're alive?
She's like, yeah, there was a crazy accident. I had to go a back way and didn't have service.
And then he shows her like the check-in paper that he found, and he's just like, but I found this. You weren't here yet. And she's like, oh, I made the reservation online. He's like, oh, I forgot about online reservations.
Not like you're living in fucking like 2021, dude.
Yeah.
Or I guess it was like 2019, right? Is when this movie was made.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even then, man, it's all online.
3 years ago. Man, it's crazy to think that was 3 years ago.
That was pre-COVID too. Fun days. And then Larry and Rachel end up going back to one of their apartments. I think it's Larry's, but
one of their
not
rooms.
Their apartments, the motel
room.
Yeah. And then they're sitting there talking and smoking a joint. I think
I should say, because it's like an important detail. After that happens, like Chester's trying to talk to Rachel as well, and he's just like, "Well, your brother hit me, but I forgive him on all that." And he's also kind of smooth talking Rachel, flirting with her a little bit.
Yeah, and then he gives them rooms for free.
Yeah,
he's like, "It's on me, pal,"
because she's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Then Larry tries to give Chester a handshake, but he's like, "We're way past handshakes, brother."
Yeah, and then he
gives him a big hug.
Yeah.
And then they're in the room.
Yeah, they're sitting there talking, and his sister's like trying to calm him down because he's still like full of anxiety. So they smoke a joint together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like super skinny joint too.
Yeah.
Like it looked like it was all paper.
Could not have enjoyed that.
But then Chester ends up knocking on the door with drinks, and Larry's standing at the door like, "I don't want to answer it." And Rachel's like, just answer it, dude. And he's like, well, let's turn off the lights and pretend we're not here.
Yeah, so then Rachel just yells out. She's like, "Be there in a second." So then he knows they're there.
Yeah. So they open the door, and Chester's just there with 2 drinks, and he's like, I thought I'd give you guys a couple drinks on the house.
Yeah, make up for everything.
And we still do not trust Chester at all. Even
No.
though he has plenty of things to make him seem innocent. He's just always off.
Haven't trusted the man since I first
But Rachel likes him still at this point. She didn't see any reason not to trust him.
Yeah.
So then Rachel's just like, why don't you ask him if he wants to come have a drink with us?
So Larry's like, "Hey, you want to come drink with us, buddy?" And he's like, "Nah, man, I don't want to bother you guys." And Larry's like, "Nah, man, it'll be okay."
So then it cuts to the next scene, and they're at the pool.
But that transition, man, it was Larry was like, "I'll meet you guys there," and then it like transitioned, and there was like this weird like sparkling audio effect as he's just like smiling, and then it cuts to the pool.
Yeah, so then it cuts to the next scene. They're all at the pool drinking together, just like getting drunk.
Yeah, getting real drunk too. Like they were fucking shredded, dude. Slurring and everything.
Had some truth serum.
And so like Rachel and Chester are talking, and Chester's just like, "Why don't you tell me, Rachel? Has Larry always been this way?" She's kind of like, "No, when he was a kid, he used to laugh and be social and whatnot."
And Chester's like, "What happened?"
And he also, after like that whole thing, he's like, "Well, maybe he's just an asshole." And then Larry comes and sits down because Rachel's like, well, tell us your story, man. What's your story? And he's like,
I ain't got no story.
I ain't got no story.
Just have fun.
But I had an ex-girlfriend who tried to steal my mind, so I stole her body.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, what?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just
staring
fucking
at him
with
all
you.
weird.
Yeah. I'm just fucking with you.
Yeah, and then he says, like, I just had a fucking babysit her dog the other week. She's fine. Yeah. I was trying to, like, put him at ease.
And he tells them, he's like, I'm the funny guy. Like, he, like, makes a point to say that about himself, which I thought was weird because no funny guy would really say that. Like, that's me, you know?
He's a master of cocktails and jokes and totally not fucked up at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what he says. Yeah.
Just out of nowhere. I mean, I'd be kind of suspicious if he just say that. It's like, well, I didn't really ask that.
Yeah. So they're still drinking together. Cuts to the next scene, and Rachel's like passed out. She had too much to drink. So then, just Chester and Larry are talking, having like a 1-to-1. They're both getting drunk together, so they're like getting sentimental with each other. And so Larry starts opening up to Chester because he doesn't really hate him anymore. Chester tries to get him to talk about like the whole like a wedding thing and why it's upsetting him and whatnot. And that's where it's revealed that Cindy, the girl that he's like fucking talking shit online on with his troll account, is his ex-girlfriend.
He's just like super obsessed with her.
Yeah, that she's marrying his first cousin.
He was like super in love with her, and so he's still like not taking the breakup super well. And yeah, she's getting married to his first cousin, which is why he's like dreading going to the wedding.
Yeah, and then Chester's like, well, you need to have the last laugh, man. That's the only way to do it.
It's the only way losers win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta have the last laugh, man.
And then Larry's like, well, I am going to have the last laugh because he's like, I wrote the letter of all letters that I'm going to hand to her right after she says I do at the wedding.
Right before she says
Oh, yeah, right before. And Chester is like beckoning him, and he's just like, oh, show me the letter. And he's like, oh, I don't know, man. I've never shown anybody before.
He's like, I want to read it, man.
Yeah. And so he like takes it out, and he like Chester just like grabs it out of his hands, starts like reading it out loud.
And I thought it was gonna be like a total hate letter, but it was a total love letter instead.
Yeah. He's still obsessed with Cindy. Does not
like,
want to.
I love you, and I still love you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's an incel for the most part. That's what Larry is.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like Larry definitely hates women.
Well, he's so in love with a woman that he just like talking shit on her. Can't let her be happy.
Yeah.
And then Chester starts crying and is like, man, this is going to crucify her.
It's fucking beautiful, man. Poetry.
And then Rachel wakes up and is like, hey, I want to go to bed. And then, so they get ready to leave, but then Chester's like, nah, man, let's take a group photo. I want to remember this.
Yeah, so he takes a group photo with all of them, and they all just look awkward as fuck. Like, Chester's the only one that's smiling.
It's a haunted picture.
And Larry and Rachel are just, like, blank-faced.
They're just drunk, man.
Yeah.
He immediately posts it to his Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they both go back to their rooms, and then, like, Larry's in his room, and he gets online, and he sees that Chester sent him a friend request.
No, he's seen it for the second time, and he finally accepted it, but he's seen that the fucking photo was already posted, so he's like, oh, that's a little weird.
But he's like, we're friends now. It's okay.
And then there's also another shot with the hidden camera.
So they all go to bed, and then Larry's woken up because he hears something outside.
Yeah.
And hears like somebody swearing and yelling, and so he looks out his window, and it's Gary, the biker dude, and he's upset because somebody like sabotaged his bike, like his Harley, and
dude, somebody sabotaged you?
Yeah. Somebody did sabotage me. It was my parents. Yeah, but he hears that, and so like Gary's like super pissed off, and he's just like sitting there yelling and whatnot. And Larry's about to go out, and he sees Chester walks out to go see like what's happening. And
then Rachel pops out of nowhere and scares the shit out of Larry again. Everybody's scaring Larry.
Yeah. And they're like sitting there looking at what's happening with Larry and or not Gary and Chester. Chester's sitting there like joking around with Gary when he's all upset that his bike's all fucked up, and so it's pissing off.
It's not that it was fucked up. It's that he drew a dick on it.
Oh yeah.
Is that all it was?
Yeah, it was just. At least that's what I saw. I don't know if he like broke anything, but I just saw the big old schlong drawn on it.
Yeah. So Chester's sitting there fucking around with Gary when he's already like super upset.
Yeah.
And, like, Gary is, like, super short-tempered, so he, like, fucking blows up on Chester, and he's like, did you do this to my fucking bike?
Yeah, punches him around the face.
Yeah, and just, like, fucking punches Chester super hard.
Yeah.
Doesn't really knock him over and whatnot, just kind of makes him walk back a little.
Yeah, and then he pulls out a switchblade.
Yeah.
He's walking up to him. And you're like, hey, man, why'd you do this? That's my baby.
Yeah. And then fucking Chester becomes like an MMA fighter and beats the shit out of Gary.
Fucking takes his switchblade and goddamn stabs it into his ear.
Yeah, so he's like beating the hell out of him, and it knocks Gary on the ground. He walks over to him, and he like hides the blade so Larry and Rachel can see it because he knows they're watching.
Yeah.
So he
even looks back at him.
Yeah, so like hides it so that he knows that they can't see it, and so like he like stabs it into Gary's fucking ear while he's on the ground. And so then he dies, obviously, and Chester starts acting like he's like, oh my god, he's dead.
Dude, I'm so sorry.
He
I
had
can't
a
believe
knife.
he's
You
dead.
seen?
You seen his knife?
He's like looking over at Larry and Rachel, and he's just like, he's dead. I think I killed him.
And then Rachel's like, oh my god, we need to call the cops.
And yeah, and then Chester's like, no, I'll call him.
So then he like pulls out his phone and starts dialing like 911. So, and then he asks Rachel and Larry that like, my final wish before I take the long walk, could you get me a bottle of vodka? So Larry and Rachel go to the bar to get his bottle of vodka, and then Rachel's like, hey, we should call the cops.
Yeah, and then Larry obviously trusts Chester at this point, so he's like, but he already said he called him. And Rachel's just like, do you really trust him? And he's like, oh, fine. So Rachel's calling the cops, and as they're doing that, Larry goes over to grab the bottle of vodka, and he sees two old people that are dead in the kitchen behind the bar.
Like in the pantry or something.
Yeah, and it's the original owners of the motel. Their names Johnny and Sherry, right?
Yes, something like that.
Johnny and Sherry, yeah. And you know it's the original owners because when earlier when Larry was like looking up reviews of the motel, it shows who the owners are and it shows the picture of them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then Chester shows up and he's like, they had hidden cameras in every room. Yeah. John was a real pervert. He liked to watch people have sex.
Yeah. So like Larry is like, he shows Rachel the bodies, and so she freaks out too, and that's when Chester comes in and he starts explaining to him everything. He's like, I know how it looks, but trust me, they did it to themselves. Has like this whole drawn out story about how they killed each other through like passionate love.
Yeah, it was the most honest expression of marriage Chester's ever seen.
That was fucking fun.
And then they calm down and start pouring drinks.
Yeah, well, Rachel tries to trick Chester, so she's like, you know what, fine, why don't we relax and have a few shots of vodka? So she like pours them all drinks, and then she takes a shot. She's like, come on, Chester.
And then before Chester takes it, he's like, you didn't tell me your sister's name. I just looked it up on your Facebook.
Yeah,
takes a shot. And then Rachel just smacks him in the back of the head with the bottle of vodka.
Yeah, knocks him out. So they run out, because at this point they don't trust Chester anymore.
Yeah, no. Like, why would you, man? More dead bodies.
They go back to the motel and...
Yeah, well, they're trying to get to their car, and then Larry's just like, well, fuck, I left my keys in my room.
They both left their keys.
So they go...
Chester's right at their fucking window with both of their keys.
Yeah, so they go back to their room to look for their keys, and they can't find them, and then fucking Rachel looks over, and Chester's just standing in front of their window with the keys, like, smiling at them.
Covered in blood.
Yeah.
Dangling them. And then Larry just runs up to the door, locks it, and like sits in front of it. And then Rachel's like, he's just standing there. He hasn't moved yet.
Yeah.
So Larry like runs away and tucks behind the bed and is like peeking over like Chester already doesn't know that they're in there.
That's around the time the cops actually showed
Yeah.
up.
And then he
Yeah.
gets like all sad and he's like, oh.
So then the cops, show up.
Rachel runs out.
And so the sheriff at this point, because of what happened last time he was called, he doesn't like Larry at all.
Yeah. No.
And he trusts Chester more. So when the sheriff shows up, he's like looking for him. And I'm guessing what had happened, the reason why he's like, because like as soon as the sheriff shows up, Larry and Rachel run out and try to explain to him what's happening. But he tells him to like stand down. And I'm guessing why that was is because I'm guessing when Chester called him, he told him that it was actually them who killed everybody.
Yeah.
So tells him to get down, put their hands behind their back, does that, and fucking handcuffs them. So they're like laying on the ground.
Handcuffs Rachel,
handcuffs Rachel,
Larry.
and then Larry charges Chester, and then
Yeah.
gets shot with a taser.
Yeah. Because like he's super upset because Chester tricked the sheriff again. So he like tries running at Chester, and then cop tases him.
And
So
then
then
he
he's
falls
on
on
the
the ground.
And then fucking Chester's like sitting there joking around about it, which pisses off the sheriff. And he's like, "You think something's funny about this?"
Taking you with me, man.
Yeah.
And then Larry Chester sneaks up behind the sheriff and just puts a zip tie around his neck and just tightens it all the way.
Yeah.
So the sheriff's just sitting there choking to death.
It's like the coolest way somebody's died.
Yeah, and then Chester's like, "Hey, man, I'll help you out. I'm gonna help you out, man. You'll be okay." As
Or he
he's just
watches
like
him
falling
die.
to the ground, just choking to death.
After he puts the zip tie on his neck, he's just like, "I can help you, man. I'm just fucking with you."
But he doesn't.
It's just a joke, man. It's just a prank, bro.
It's just a prank. You're all pranked. There's a camera over there, over there, over there.
You just got punked.
Yeah. So then he kills the sheriff, and then Larry and Rachel can't do anything because Rachel's like handcuffed, and Larry's just been tased. And so Chester is just kind of like walking over to him, and Larry is able to like struggle enough to get into his car and like lock the door.
But this is also why Chester like picked up the taser and is just continuously
Oh,
just
yeah.
zapping him.
Grabs the taser from the sheriff and just keeps tasing him.
Yeah, and then Larry somehow gets in the car because, you know.
Well, Chester puts him in there because
Yeah.
Oh,
right,
okay,
yeah.
actually, no.
He's
Chester
like-
does put him
So
in there.
Chester puts him in the car.
zapped out of consciousness.
And then he goes over to Rachel, which I thought this was going to be a way worse scene than it actually was.
Yeah, me too.
Because he picks up Rachel and like puts her over the car, and obviously she's like struggling. He kind of like bends her over and starts getting all psychopathic and like puts the blade on her face and starts caressing with.
Oh, he
caressing
also
her with it.
scrapes it against the like rear window of the car.
Yeah.
And it just
And
makes a gross noise.
It's like implied that he's going to rape her.
Or
Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was going to happen, which is why I say it was worse than it was. But he doesn't. He ends up just cutting the zip tie. Well, yeah, because she wasn't handcuffed; she was zip tied with her hands. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and so what he actually does end up doing, is he cuts the zip ties to her hands, and then so she's able to get away. Lets her like run off and get into the car. She's like, "What are you doing?"
I just wanted
also-
you guys to get to the wedding.
Yeah,
And he's like, I want you guys to get to the wedding on time.
yeah, and throws her the keys.
We're still
Here,
friends.
take it.
So she gets in the car and she tries to like run
Speed
away.
off.
She like starts it and backs up and tries to speed off. But obviously, that wasn't Chester's plan. He sabotaged it. He put like the
party like flutes is whatever it wrote down. I don't know what they're
Yeah, I don't
called.
know what
Party
they're called.
horns.
party
Party
horns,
horns,
whatever
yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
Puts a bunch of those in the tailpipe, so as they're like trying to drive off, they just make a bunch of sound, and it kills the engine as they're like driving off. And Chester's just like, I didn't think that actually fucking worked.
And then Chester ends up like pulling him out and knocking Larry to the ground and putting some like laughing gas on him.
Oh yeah, makes him like pat. Well, yeah, he does that, and then Rachel gets out, and she's like, "What are you doing to him? Or what are you giving him?" And he's like, "Laughing gas, of course."
And then
She
It's
sees
just a joke
gun.
that never ends.
yeah, Rachel sees a gun on the ground.
It's a revolver. And
Tries to grab it from him, and he like Chester puts his hands up and he's like, God damn, you got me. She pulls the trigger.
Just 1, 2, and he fucking counts every single one of the shit.
That one makes 6.
Fucking just fucking with
laughing.
God, that was a good scene.
Yeah, and then he grabs her, throws her to the ground, and also puts the laughing gas on her, makes her pass out.
After they like scream at each other together for different reasons.
Yeah. And then, yeah, Chester ends up putting laughing gas into Rachel's face too.
And he sings her a lullaby as she falls asleep.
And then the next scene is great, dude.
It's so good.
Because then they wake up, or Larry wakes up, and he's just in the middle of a pool on a floaty, and Chester's just dancing to some like rap music, I think it was.
Yeah, he has a Hawaiian shirt on. He's like looking around, and all the people that Chester killed are just like all set up around the pool on like the chairs, also like in like party clothes, just like fucking Hawaiian costumes and drinks and whatnot, even though they're all dead.
It's just such a great scene, dude.
And Larry's like tripping. He's like seeing different shit and hearing things, and it's because well, Chester tells him he's just that he gave him like a shitload of ayahuasca.
And a
some
bunch of other stuff,
Yeah.
too. And he's like, hey, man, don't fucking move, man. You're going to fall off the pool floaty.
And Chester's like, you need to lighten up, man. And he calls him a dour curmudgeon with a scorpion sting. That's how he described Larry as his personality.
And then before that, he was telling Larry that I am judgment and wrath, and you have been judgmented.
Yeah, he's like, that's not a word. And he's like, you don't got a fucking thesaurus on that pool floaty.
Yeah, he's like, that doesn't even make sense. That's not a word. And he's just like, you got a fucking thesaurus?
Chester's like, I'm a shaman.
He's like, I gave you
Yeah.
a shit ton of ayahuasca.
Oh, yeah. And he's just like, don't worry, I'm a trained shaman.
Yeah.
Then as Larry's just in the middle of his fucking high, just walking down the road with Chester, he's like, Larry, you're the April Fool.
And he's like, obviously having like visual distortions, and he starts like actually changing his physical ego because he is the April Fool now. He just looks fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Pretty great scene.
Yeah. So Chester takes him back over to his room and puts him in there. He's just like sitting with him. Then he takes out his phone and he starts. Well, before that, he's like trying to get Larry to like open up to him like emotionally because he's all fucking pumped full of ayahuasca.
Yeah.
So he can't.
So this is the confrontation.
Yeah, he's trying to get him to be all emotional, and
He's like,
he
Tell
does.
Me
He
who
gets
you
him.
really are, Larry.
He gets him to break down and kind of reveals, and like fucking Larry starts talking to him about how he's like super insecure. He's like a nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody likes him.
He's a prisoner in his head, which makes him hate people.
And he made the alter ego or the troll account program flaw because it makes him feel powerful.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And he's like, I am now programming flaw, no longer Larry.
Yeah. And at this time, he's also asking. Beforehand, when like Chester's taking him over to his room, he's like asking him where Rachel's at. Chester's not telling him.
He's like, your sister's fine. She's actually in the room.
Kind of forgets about it. Well, yeah, he's like,
We don't know that yet. That she's
Well, no, he says that she's in the room.
he's telling Larry like, don't worry about it. She'll show up later.
After that whole like programming flaw, like confessional, Larry's like, you found your powerful side.
Yeah. And Chester's filming him the whole time while he's saying this.
Yeah.
On his phone.
Then after they're done recording that, Larry's like, can I see my sister now?
No, well, then Chester is like finishes up, and he goes over to like smoke a cigarette, and he's like, yeah, it's telling him, he's like, can I see my sister now? She's like, yeah, she's in the bathroom. And he opens up the door, and then
Rachel, come out here.
yeah,
And then Larry walks in the bathroom and then sees Rachel with a mask over her face, just blue-faced, like she was strangled.
Starts sobbing.
yeah. There's a fucking zip tie around her neck. She's like strangled. Her
Yeah.
skin's all blue.
And you hear the eagle sound.
Yeah.
Oh, that's also an important thing to say, too, is that there's an eagle sound every time, like, one of Chester's, like, jokes.
Punchlines.
Yeah, like, come to fruition. There's just an eagle screech.
Yeah. So then Larry freaks out and he starts crying, but he's still like pumped full of ayahuasca, so he can't really do much. So he like falls back and like crawls on the ground in front of Chester when he's on the bed, and just like is crying on the ground. And then his cries start turning into like laughter.
Well, that's because he's being berated by Chester because he posted the video and the letter he wrote to Cindy on Twitter or whatever it was.
Yeah, Chester's like, your dead sister's not even the funniest part. I just posted all this to the wedding group and everybody knows who you are now.
Oh yeah, and he starts reading in the comments of what people were saying to him after like
which
After they figured out that he was programmed.
makes Larry break down even more. And then he eventually just starts
some
cracking
funny
up.
comments. One of them was just like, die.
It's like, oh, look at this. This is the best one. It just says die.
Cindy also comments on it and calls him like a monster.
Yeah.
All that. So like his life's ruined at this point. That's what Chester is trying to do.
And he fucking starts laughing and he transitions and he's like, goddamn, dude, I fucking clicked. You are funny. You're the funniest fucker I know.
So Larry's cries slowly start turning into laughter when he's on the ground. And so Chester's a little bit confused.
He's
and
like, I get it now.
He's like, you know what, Chester? You're the funniest motherfucker alive.
Also, why before, or like why he saw, or when he saw his sister dead, he was like, why'd you do this, Chester? And Chester's like, why not?
Yeah, so he starts laughing and telling Chester he was like funny, and it's like this is where it's like slowly starting to turn where like Larry is now in control of Chester a little bit.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of manipulating him a little bit, because then he's like laughing at him, he's giving him praise. He's just like, yeah, you are super funny, man.
You are the funniest motherfucker I know.
Through that, he's also laughing, and he's like, you know what would be funny is instead of killing me here, because Chester has like a gun pointed to his head and he's about to kill him. He's like, instead of killing me here, why don't you take Rachel and me over to the wedding and then kill me there? That way our bodies can roll down the hill right into the wedding. Everybody will be freaked out.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah. So Chester likes the idea.
He's like, yeah, dude, that's funny, man.
Yeah.
Now you're talking.
So then Larry's like a little bit of a psychopath, and he goes and he grabs Rachel's body. And he's like, come on, Rachel, let's go.
So then it's like morning time, and Chester and Larry start carrying Rachel out.
Yeah.
And then Larry's like, oh, I'm going to drive us to the wedding. And Chester's like, you're going to drive? And he's like, my sister will not let you drive. Then starts asking his dead sister, like, permission for Chester to drive.
She says, no fucking way, man. They're all laughing and she's dead.
And this was also another really good scene.
Yeah, and so then Larry's just like, give me the keys, Chester. And he like throws them over to Larry so he can drive. Just manipulating Chester at this point.
And then they're in the car driving, just cracking stupid jokes. Just two psychos laughing about dumb things about his dead sister in the backseat. About how she's not talking because she's dead.
And it's like, hey, Rachel, shut up. You're going to ruin the punchline.
It's just out of his mind at this point.
Yeah, and then,
I do think it's implied that he's like doing it because his life's over.
oh, yeah.
At this point. So he's just doing what he can to manipulate Chester.
And then he asked Chester, he was like, hey, you want to hear a funny joke? And Chester's like, yeah, I do, man. So he's like, okay, so there's two idiots and a dead girl driving in a car, and their names are Chester and Larry.
And it's like super long, drawn out joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, I bet, or he said, there's one thing Chester always wanted, was to be Rachel's dog Hercules. Because Hercules always got to ride in the front seat with Rachel.
And Chester's
she
like,
loved
where's
that
this
dog.
joke going?
And he's like, get to the punchline, Larry.
So Larry's like, okay, well, my sister took out the airbag on the passenger side seat.
Yeah, he's like, she made a modification because she loved him so much to her car. And he's like, oh yeah, what was that modification?
And he's like,
and as he's about to
up.
get to it, he's like speeding up and getting faster and faster and faster. And
And
he's
they're
like,
driving down a dead end.
yeah. And he's just like, she took out the airbags in his seat. or in the passenger side.
In Chester's side. Chester has no airbags. And then he's like, okay, so what's funny about this? And he's like, well, the end of the joke is Chester and Larry drove straight into a wall. And then it cuts to a camera angle of the car just driving straight into a wall.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the filmed movie.
Yeah.
Then it goes into like before the credits is, or I guess it's during the credits.
Yeah, so Larry kills both him and Chester.
No, Larry kills Chester because Chester's still alive according to like the comments after, because it's program
Larry.
flaw.
Larry's still alive. Because he took all the credit for what Chester did at the motel.
Yeah, that was what all that like end scene was.
Oh, yeah. So Chester's dead.
He's like, I'm gonna have fun fucking guys like you in prison, is what one of the comments were.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the movie.
Yeah, so everything gets blamed on Larry.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of revealed in the credits, too, that the way Chester killed Rachel is that he injected her with bleach.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's like a public outrage, and now this is Larry's life.
Yeah. So, how many Chester Cheetahs would you rate this movie?
Chester Cheetos.
I mean, we're not even far in. This really wasn't a long movie.
No.
But it was really
It was
really
an
good.
hour and 22 minutes.
No,
I'm pretty sure.
yeah, it wasn't very long, but it definitely was so much better than The Curse of Humpty Dumpty, let me tell you.
Oh, fuck
Oh,
yeah.
This is one of my favorite horror movies so far.
And I think The Curse of Humpty Dumpty was longer.
Honestly,
It
I
was.
think the worst two we've done were probably The Right and The Curse of Humpty Dumpty. And The Right wasn't even bad. It was just in comparison to these two that we just, or
the
the
first
Nightmare.
one and this one.
The Nightmare, now this one. I think these are the best two so far.
Oh,
I disagree. I think the right and this one are the best ones so far.
we all have our differing opinions.
Nightmare's good. I would put this above The Nightmare, though.
I would say this is by far the best movie we've watched so far.
How many Chester Cheetahs, though?
I would.
Eight and a
how
half.
many though? Like, what's the limit?
60.
So 0 to 6 or 1 to 60 Chester Cheetahs.
Yeah.
1 to 60.
Okay.
That's a fucking scale, guy.
56.
50. Yeah, I'd give it like a 50.
I would say
50 Chester Cheetahs out of 60 Chester Cheetahs.
57. 57 Chester Cheetahs.
Why was it so hard to pinpoint that? Right there?
Why so high? You guys are giving this
57.
such a high rating.
It's a great movie.
I loved it. Like
It
I
is a
said.
great movie.
I
but
mean, that's like a
You'll have any fucking
9.7
problems?
out of 10.
I think one of the good things about this movie is it holds your attention like the entire time.
it does. Okay,
There's
that is-
nothing. There's nothing boring about it.
That is fucking fair.
The dialogue is great. The fucking
know-
camera work is great. I
Yeah.
love all the characters.
The
I
noises and all the music, which
Yeah.
by Chino Marino, by the way.
From Deftones.
Yeah, big fan. It's
And
great.
the only part that like was weird was just the beginning, like when he's just driving. And I tried to watch this movie like I don't know, like a year ago, and I just watched that part and I was like, I don't know if I'll like this. But then we actually sat down and watched it, and I was like, oh fuck, dude, this is a great movie.
Yeah, it is a great movie. Highly recommend it.
It's not really scary at all.
No.
It's funny and actiony.
It's like a psychological thriller. Kind of a gore movie too, a little bit.
It's a
Oh, yeah, dude.
psychological thriller, but it's supposed to be a comedy because it makes you laugh the whole time.
It's about a serial killer who's just like fucking hilarious for the most
Yeah.
part. Yeah.
He makes people not take life seriously.
I do really like Jerry's like death because it shows like the blade going deep into his ear. Oh,
Yeah.
and all like the blood starts popping out. Ugh.
Stabs him in the side of the head.
It's so good.
It is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And the music is perfect too, because the lyrics at the end said "Hellbound" or "Heaven Sent." It's like, which one? Like,
so what were
both.
our ratings? So I said 57 Chester Cheetahs.
I said 50.
50.
56
Let's see.
Chester Cheetahs.
Yeah, I'd put it. I wouldn't say it's a 10 out of 10. I'd put it like 50.
Yeah.
50?
So it'd be like a 50, like 4.
I guess if the scale is that high,
54.
if it's going to 60, then I'd probably put it at like 51, 52. Because maybe 57 is too high, because that's like almost perfect.
Yeah, this movie is definitely not perfect, but it's pretty close.
It's goddamn good.
What does
Yeah.
that mean?
Like I said, I think the thing this movie did the best is like there's never a boring part. It holds your attention the entire time. Like the dialogue is great. It's funny.
Yeah.
And like, yeah. Every part about this movie was good, I thought.
Find it on Hulu.
The camera work was great. I
Mhm.
liked the lighting, but they used basically the same lighting effect for like the first like 2/3 of the movie. It was just like a blue like neon light. But then it started to get kind of cool later on because they started incorporating like street lights. It looked like it was only shot with street lights too, and like the neon light from the sign.
That's cool.
Yeah, it didn't look like there was any like external lights that we didn't see.
I do feel like the music fit the movie very well too.
Yeah. Very good transitional music.
It was like very like
entertaining,
poppy music.
Yeah.
There was some rap. There was another like just pop song, but
Really,
then a lot of just ambient noise that was really good.
and really, like I don't think you feel bad for a whole lot of the characters. I think the only one that really didn't deserve what they got was Rachel. She didn't do anything bad. She was actually like a good person.
I will also say that the sheriff didn't really deserve this either because he was like the only cop I've seen actually use his taser instead of pulling out a gun to shoot Larry when he ran away.
He did make a ton of wrong assumptions though.
Yeah, but also in the moment, you know, I would probably also think that Larry was fucking crazy.
It's true.
Because Chester was convincing.
Larry absolutely deserved to die though.
Oh yeah,
I mean, he didn't die, but he deserved what he got.
I honestly,
definitely deserved to go to prison.
Yeah.
and get exposed for
And
being
exposed,
a piece of
yeah.
shit. So
Yeah.
Larry got what he deserved, I guess.
Chester also got what he deserved. He flew into the wall.
Maybe that's why Chester, maybe, like, he is a bad guy, he's a serial killer, but maybe that's why he didn't really fuck with Rachel too much. Like, he kind of did, because he's still a serial killer, but he didn't, like, ruin her life like he did with Larry.
But that's because, you know, Rachel was like...
Well, that's not on camera. You just don't know that.
But I don't think he really did anything, because if he did go out and do something to her, it probably would have...
I think he tortured her and killed her.
I know that
like
he...
the credits said, like, he injected her with bleach, so that, like, probably took a long time to kill her and was
He
painful.
probably didn't torture
Yeah,
her.
but-
He
No,
probably just set her up so
he
that
definitely
her brother
did
would find
because
her the way he did.
He said a joke when they were, like, going to the car that was like, I really liked your sister, man, but I still fucked her even though she was dead. He did say that. So he did do bad stuff to her, but I don't think he, like, ruined her life.
He said,
I mean,
"I'll
he
fuck
probably
everything that
Killed her.
moves,"
I mean,
or
that's
doesn't.
taking a
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
he
Rachel.
ruined her life.
He probably would have if he did, like, rape her in that one scene, like I was talking about, because I thought he was going to.
Yeah, but
But yeah.
Rachel also didn't seem to really deserve what she got. Cause
No.
she
Like I
was just
said, she's
kinda
the
there.
only character I feel bad for. I do kind of feel bad for the sheriff, too.
I also want to say, like, these guys didn't really try to fight back much. They just kind of gave up when
They
the
let
gun
it
didn't
happen.
work. Yeah. That's what I was saying earlier when we were watching the movie. Is like, man, he's not like a very like good killer per se, because he
runs
just
into
kind
a
of
lot of stupid people in
Yeah.
a motel that he can just fucking kill. Yeah.
But I mean, that might be a good killer method too. Is just stupid people, man.
It's
Yeah.
true.
Well, he was fucking him up mentally too, though.
But also, they didn't have to be around for that.
Yeah.
He didn't really try to stop them from leaving. They could have easily got out and ran.
Not Trevor.
Trevor.
Chester. Chester was an excellent character, though.
Yeah, he was.
Definitely had like a lot of building of his character.
Also, another issue I had with it too is that they didn't show Chester's death. They just showed them going towards a wall. They didn't show it like hitting the wall and him flying out or anything.
And it's assumed he died.
Yeah,
It was artistic, though.
It was artistic because
But that's
the way
not an
that
excuse. That's just lazy.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool how like when they hit the wall, they just like made it look like a fucking crash test dummy, and then it was like a dog flying out the window because of Rachel's dog.
Yeah, but I
I just thought that was
That was
just
cool.
kind of.
That also made me feel
It was
bad.
artistic.
I hate watching movies when they show deaths off camera. It's like, man, I want to see
That's
it.
fair. That is fair.
But unless they said it like have a sequel and then he comes back, then it's like, okay, I'll come back and right my wrong for talking bad on that part.
I'd only like a sequel to this film if Chester was in it.
Yeah, which there could be because you didn't see Chester die,
True.
so we don't know if he died or not.
It's true.
But it was confirmed in the news shit because like
The
Larry
credits,
pretty
yeah.
much got all the
But it could have also been
credit
Chester.
for Chester's kills.
But it could also be Chester who's the one that did that up too. Because he did try to already ruin his life, or he did already ruin his life.
And it's Hayes MacArthur that plays Chester.
Yeah.
At first, I was thinking it was T.J. Miller,
They do look very similar.
Yeah. But no, it's Hayes MacArthur that plays Chester.
I honestly wondered if Rachel was in on it and it was like one big prank on Larry. Like a fake prank. But turns out it was just a big real prank.
Dude, imagine everybody's alive and then Chester's just like, I'm just fucking with you.
No.
This was all a big setup, man.
Damn.
That was a good movie.
But I did kind of get that too from like when Chester and what's her name, Rachel, first met each other, because it kind of seemed like they knew each other at first, because they just clicked right away. But yeah,
Well, that's just because he has a high
I wonder
amount
if
of
that.
charisma.
I wonder if that like Polaroid that Chester sent to Larry was an actual picture of his dick.
I know.
Like, is that
Oh,
the
I'm
actual
sure it
actor's
was.
dick?
I'm sure it was.
You
That
do
was
see
a-
you see a full-on flaccid penis in detail in this film.
it was a long boy too. Man's
It was.
packing heat.
That was the only unnecessary part of the film, I think.
But it was pretty funny, man.
It was pretty funny, but it's like, dude, why? Like,
It
get
kind
it,
it kind of
why
goes
not?
along with the mood of this film. It's very gritty and like gross, and
yeah,
See,
it was great.
it doesn't pull its punches
Just
in any way.
It was great.
that's
Yeah.
probably one of the only dick pics that if I were to receive, I wouldn't be mad, because I'd be like, this is fucking funny.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad, but I'd also be like fucking
I'd be
curious and be like, who the
uncomfortable.
hell sent this to
Even
me?
if it said it was
Like,
from your sister.
Yeah. I just would probably think it's funny.
what if it was your sister?
My sister's packing schmeat then.
Cut out all the
Trevor's
bad
over here eating.
crinkles.
Trail
I was
mix.
wrinkling.
What kind of trail mix is it?
It's probiotic because I need to shit.
Trevor's being a fat ass again.
Probiotic.
If you heard our first podcast, you probably heard this fat ass making something in the microwave.
Yeah. Sorry.
He's like, they won't hear it. It's right behind us.
Also, the first podcast was super scuffed.
Yeah.
There was just like vape hits every like 2 seconds.
I mean, I do feel like it kind of takes us all a second to start warming up to actually talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Podcast.
Oh,
Like
definitely.
even with this one, like we didn't
It was
really
way
know
worse
what
with
to
the
do
first
at
one.
the start
Yeah.
of the podcast.
I was like, here's the intro. Okay, now what?
I mean, we'll sometime get it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be more natural.
We'll keep at it.
But
Hope
yeah,
y'all
that,
stay
You
tuned.
guys want to cut it here then?
that was
And finish it up.
I'm Just Fucking With You, directed by, who was it again? Sorry.
See this.
It was directed by
Adam Mason.
Adam Mason.
Yep. This is a Hulu exclusive. If you guys want to watch it, I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's a great
Really,
movie.
really good. And so next week, I'm actually excited for it because we're going to start doing The Conjuring. So we're going to watch the first
Yeah.
Conjuring,
The second
and
and
then
the third.
the weeks following, we're going to do the second and the third one. And I know what everybody's thinking. Like, there's a ton of spin-offs. There's like Annabelle. There's the
The
Nun,
Nun. Yeah.
and all that. We'll get to those eventually. We're just not going to do them right after The Conjuring because that is just going to take that's going to be a whole long time of just the Conjuring universe.
Yeah, and we have this whole like
Yeah.
movie schedule planned up so that we can take time in October to do more like Halloween-y movies. Not necessarily Halloween.
I think you guys will like what we're doing after The Conjuring too.
Yeah. After The Conjuring, we got a big one too. So
Yeah.
August and September are going to be some fun months.
Bye.
Hell's Satan.
Stay tuned.